Hi, it's Jared O'D here, Director of Training from Dynamis, and today I want to take a few moments of your time to explain what we cover on our Positive Handling course for schools. Now, our objectives for this course cover a number of different topics. We want your staff to understand what is reasonable force. We want them to understand their duty of care and what their duty under law of taking reasonable care for themselves is. We also want them to understand some of the common scenarios that they may face and be able to apply rules to that so they can understand what's an appropriate thing to do and what's not an appropriate thing to do. Now, in many cases during the course, we will directly refer to guidance, and the guidance from 2012 called Use of Reasonable Force, Advice for Head Teacher Staff and Governing Bodies, it came from the Department for Education, and it says some very, very important things. The first thing is, all members of school staff have a legal power to use reasonable force, and it refers to the Education Inspections Act 2006, and in there it says that school staff may use such force as is reasonable in the circumstances for the purpose of preventing a pupil from doing a number of things. Once we've had a good look at the legislation, we return again to the guidance, and in the guidance it's very specific about 5 scenarios in which schools may use reasonable force. And those range across a number of different activities that might be going on. So if you have a disruptive child in a classroom, that's one scenario that they talk about. In another scenario, you have a child who's maybe fighting or attacking a member of staff. In another different scenario, you might have a child who is putting themselves at risk of harm because of physical outburst or frustration that they're experiencing. And in the guidance, it gives us some hints as to what good decisions we can make around those things. Of course, it's very important that your staff know when they should not use force, and the guidance gives us some very clear hints as to when force absolutely cannot be used. Physical force can never be used as a punishment, and we come at this from a number of different angles to make sure your staff have a clear set of rules that they can apply in any given scenario to know whether what they're doing or their clients or their staff team is doing, whether that's actually an appropriate thing to do or an inappropriate, therefore abusive thing to do. So we spend a considerable amount of time on this course making sure that your staff have a really deep appreciation of the principles behind these legal ideas of reasonable force and what is reasonable care. This inevitably leads us to a discussion of managing risk. Now, risk assessments, as we know, are a legal requirement for any hazardous activity that's being undertaken at work, and they must be documented. But equally as important to that, we believe, is that your staff have an awareness of the risks that stack up on either side of a decision that they might make about making a physical intervention. They need to know what the risks of not intervening might be, and they need to have an appreciation of what the risks of their intervention might be. And this really helps, we found in feedback from our courses, our discussion of risk management really helps the staff to tighten up on being confident that they're making the good decisions we want them to make. Now, no discussion of risk during physical intervention could be complete unless we discussed the risk of serious injury, possibly fatality, during a physical intervention. Now, we've had history in the United Kingdom of these types of events where a physical intervention with a child or a young or a vulnerable person goes terribly wrong and we have a tragic event on our hands. You know, a team of staff at a school or a facility will intervene with somebody, and because of the decisions they make, the tactics they use, or something that goes wrong in the middle of that intervention, they have a fatality on their hands at the end of it. Now, we've always said that if you could only give us 20 minutes with your staff, we would discuss this topic with them, and probably only this topic, because it's so important. Now, on screen in front of you right now is a picture of a restraint intervention which epitomizes all the things that we believe you shouldn't really be doing, especially with a child in a physical intervention. There's so much going wrong in this picture right now that the amount of risk being exposed to the child is huge. And we'll go through with your staff a checklist that shows them things they really should not be doing. And this will help to manage risk across your whole organization. That's one of the last topics on our course. And over the last few moments, I've tried to give you a really good idea of the general things that we cover. We take a lot of questions. We get into detail on specific scenarios where your staff need it. We often sometimes talk about specific pupils at your school, and how your staff can come up with creative, practical solutions to the problems that they're having in terms of behavior or risk or violence or aggression. If you think that what you've heard so far in this video, and I hope it's been interesting, if you think that we can help you with a training course at your school, please give us a call. We're on 0844 812 9795, or you'll find our email close by to this video here, and we hope to hear from you. We'd really like to come and help you to create a safe and secure environment at your school. Thanks for listening.